मन पर तुम्हारा महारा इश्क क्या शय है इश्क क्या शय है क्या दिल से पूछा चाहिए मन पर तुम्हारा मौला मन पर तुम्हारा
Namaste everybody, welcome to Artist Collective by Rangbhumi. My name is Chetna and we have our team members Veera, Roshan, Suraj here, and we work in the area of applied theatre with schools, with children, and part of the corporate create learning spaces. And today we have a very dear friend and also maybe I can call him as one of our teachers, Akhshay Gandhi, and Akshay with an H because we always get the H.
Yes. Hello everyone. Hi Chetna.
Hi Akshay, thanks for coming in today. It was we actually met Akshay at our playback theatre gathering, and thanks to Pankaj Tiwari who got us connected. And Akshay has a great fan following amongst the children that he interacted with. So Akshay, welcome formally.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to just read some formal introduction about Akshay Gandhi. Akshay Gandhi is a theatre performer and a director based in Bangalore, India. Creating theatre and researching performance practices are two important paths in this artistic and personal journey. Being an alumni of Odin Teatret, Denmark, and Anne Bogart's SITI company, New York, he is inspired to channelize his energy in bringing phenomena which impacts us today in compelling and relevant performances. Well, also Akshay is the founder and artistic director of multidisciplinary organization Still Space Theatre. I somehow love this name, Still Space Theatre. And it has a lot of credentials to his work. He has Still Space Theatre has been received warmly as various prestigious institutes like Stanford, UCLA, UC Berkeley, Spoken Fest Mumbai, Lalit Kala Kendra, Tamasha Studio, and Rang Shankara. So, and Akshay Gandhi has this credit to revive the performance of a folk tradition called the Kavar Katha, which probably we might just get a glimpse of. Yes. You're all excited. So this is about Akshay. So Akshay, before we really get into the technical questions, I would really love to know something about your childhood and how your growing up years and how art impacted you and your life.
So I'm from a very basic middle class family, like many of us, most probably, where there is education, where there's science, which is most important. You go to school, you study, and then you take a job. Basically, that's the aspiration usually are. If you get a good job, great. If you get a mediocre job, that's fine. So my childhood is primarily very light, like very simple stuff. No pressure of doing something important, doing something interesting. Just get a basic job, just get things done. Most important influences from my childhood is I happened to join a martial art classes, and then we were so passionate because we were like this poor martial art company, who had no resources, no funds, and like it's exactly like that in theater also. So we used to make our own space and figure out a way to practice. We were just like 4 or 5 people who were interested in. So I was primarily in Rajasthan. Sometimes we traveled because of my father's job. We traveled to Delhi and other places, but primarily in Rajasthan. And it was very simple, straightforward childhood with a lot of friends. No art, by the way, no art in life. There is art everywhere. In one sense, yes, the art is everywhere. You look at television, you read Premchand, you read poetry in your school, you read literature, all of that is there anyway, but no direct focus on the arts as such. Now, there was no, we have to do some arts for whatever reasons. In one way, that was great because we played a lot and had a lot of fun. yeah, I made a lot of friends and just focused on fun.
So interesting, because a lot of us are listening to you here, and sometimes even I feel, being an artist, there is a lot of pressure. I'm sure you would have met arts early in your life. I'm sure you would have done so much, but it's so easy to listen to you that it can meet you anywhere and anytime.
Yeah, and
So Akshay, have you been to Bits Pilani?
yes, so yes, as I said, everyone in family usually is like, get a job, basically. So you basically move backwards. You say, okay, you have to get a job, which means you have to get into a college which can give you a job, which means it should be a medical science, or it should be engineering, basic, what everyone thinks about. So okay, let's fine. I'm in 12th, and so what should we do? Okay, study for some entrance exams, and let's see where life takes you. I was in Jalore. Jalore is a small district in Rajasthan. So there was no internet, there was no way to figure out which college to join. So somebody said there is this college called Bits Pilani and you should try for it. I said, yeah, cool, why not? Let's try for it. So IIT everyone knew. So I'm like, okay, anyway, IIT, we will give exam. Bits also is there. So I only gave these two exams. IIT, I couldn't, I couldn't clear. So I get through Bits and then I joined it. And then only I realized, oh, okay, Bits is kind of an important institution in India. Because in Rajasthan, really, I mean, I was really waiting for my results, and being in Jalo, there was no connectivity of any kind. I mean, I couldn't see where my results are. I didn't know if I don't get through it, what will I do in my life? And I was not worried, but it's just that there was no connectivity. Why I'm giving this background is because I think there is a lot of pressure which goes away because there is no connectivity. You know, there is no pressure of that. I know it, and yet I didn't do it. So that kind of thing was not there. So yeah, I went to Bits Pilani, Goa campus.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah.
I can so resonate now why the name of your company is still Space Theatre. There's so much of easiness in your, your life, maybe the way you've looked at it.
Yeah.
So coming to the question which we all are excited about, your tryst and encounter with Kawar Katha, and a little peep and glimpse into your Kawar Katha today.
Oh yes, sure, why not? So Kawar Katha happened when I was already a theatre artist. I chose to be a theatre artist after a while, and then when I went to Rajasthan, in one of the in my village, in my place called Jalore, somebody asked me, what do you do? And I said, I do theatre. And obviously usually in villages and small towns, nobody know what theatre is. For us, theatre means cinema. That is what it means. So I'm like, no. And in order to explain them, I just told them that I tell stories, which is actually not true, because most of my theatre is super experimental. It moves so far from story as a narrative, as a device, that I have to say something. So they said, oh, like Kavadiyas. And I'm like, okay, what Kavadiyas? They say, so I'm talking to an old man, and he's saying, when I was a child, these Kavadiyas will come to village, they will do some storytelling, and they will gather the community and a lot of things. And I'm like, wow, this sounds super exciting. And I said, where can I find them? And he said, I don't know. I didn't see them for like 30 years maybe. So it excited me. I was already in the district. So I'm like, why not? Let's take a bike, someone's bike, and let's start looking for them. And I started looking for them, found interesting material as I spoke to more people. Some said, no, we have seen them a couple of years ago. Some says now they only perform for patrons, and all of that journey happened. And I obviously came across, I did Google search. And on Google, I found Neena Sadnani ma'am's work. So Neena Sadnani used to work at IIT Bombay, and she did a wonderful, wonderful work on a Coward's documentation, really recorded, documented a lot of work. I came across that. I haven't met her so till now, but I went through her work, which was my first engagement. It looked really fascinating. I was totally fascinated by just the art of it. And it was purely that I was excited about the art form, that I went for it. And as I looked through it, I realized that, it's not so more in practice. It's there as a ritual, but it's not as like community. How usually in folk art is basically about people gathering and things happening, right? And then there will be one storyteller or two storytellers who are like really, really good at it. But that was not happening. And I was a little worried. And I left my corporate job, so I still had that corporate thing in my head that, maybe we can do some crowdfunding, we can do some kind of platform stuff and all of that, and bring them on board of some kind. As I tried doing it, I realized it is not in my capacity as an individual. Second, there is a lot of difference between how we as urban people look at art and how Kavadiyas, for example, look at Kavad. For them, it's a ritual. It's a very sacred thing. For us, art might be sacred, but for them, it's a different kind of sacredness. It comes as a ritual, as a responsibility, as a job, which is where there was a sort of a difference. So I met this Kavadiya called Khoja Ramji. He is my influence. He's my reference to Kavad Katha as such. And he also mentioned that Neena Sabnani ma'am tried to put him on stage, and he said, why will we tell stories on stage? It does not make sense. And I said, why? It does make sense to us. And he says, no, it's a ritual, you know, we have to do it for the gods. We have to do it for the family. And I realized there is a gap. So I came back to Bangalore and I thought about it. And then I felt, okay, what is it that I can do? I obviously met my team and I shared this experience of bike trip. It was adventurous, basically speaking. It was thrill. And that is why I was doing it. No serious thing. Again, I did it purely for the fun of it and the excitement and interest of it. It was exciting that it comes from my place and I don't know about it. And when I came back, I said, okay, I'm an actor. And that time I was primarily an actor. I directed a couple of times, but I didn't enjoy direction. I still don't, but direction is like that. So I was an actor. So I said, okay, what I can do is I can make a play about Kavad so that people will know about it. People will know about this form. And if people know about a form, it is difficult for the form to vanish. You know, for example, it is super difficult for Bharatanatyam to vanish purely because so many people know about it.
Right.
Right. And maybe then there will be a ground for a revival. I mean, I don't think we revived anything, but at least we are trying to prepare a ground, and we are contributing of what we can. So we said, okay, cool, let's start doing it, which means I have to research. So my usual theater is basically research-driven theater, where all I know is, okay, study, explore, invest time, understand something, try to explore something, and then whatever comes out of it. That is my theater, and that is what we did with Kavad as well. We started exploring. I started spending all my morning sitting and writing something from my childhood, from whatever it is. And then in the afternoon, I will spend time researching about what is folk, what does it mean to have mythology, what is the ritual, things like that. I will study, talk to people, I meet scholars and all of that. And over 5 to 6 months of research, what we did, it really changed me as artist. I realized that the kind of thing I'm writing naturally is in a specific form. And I don't know what is that form. Because I was writing impulsively. I was totally writing impulsively. And I realized that there is a form which is what I observed about how people in my village talk to each other. The way जो लहजा कहते हैं या किस तरह की बातें करते हैं. So Rajasthan में, for example, they get into philosophical lines just like that. For them it's like, oh, हम लोग आज मैं यहाँ बैठा हूँ, आप वहाँ बैठे हैं, यही कुदरत का खेल है, यही सारी माया है. मतलब, I mean, they will make up some random stuff. Yeah. From Chipkali walking on the wall to whatever, you know. I mean, that is how they function. And these were the things which I started picking up. These were the things which I said, oh, okay, a folk form, in my understanding, is something which kind of brings out what the day-to-day life culture is. Which means if I have to do Kavad, it should have that kind of lehza. The content should be of that kind of format. And in Rajasthan and Gujarat belt, a part of it, there is a lot of sing-song. You know, like people don't, like, it took me as actor like really good 3 years to get away of my sing-song. I had such a sing-song voice from my upbringing that nobody will take me as actor. They're like, you know, you don't speak lines properly. And so it took me 3 years first to take it off, and then it was needed for Kavad show, because that is usually how people perform things and tell stories. And my grandmother told stories, so it was coming in format. And I already started having some playwriting training parallelly. I was already engaging with other trainings, so I started having this understanding of structures, very technical things like structures and form and content and all of that. Right. So I started seeing some kind of logic which was coming together. And I was also reading a lot of Vijayadan Dethaji, who was a brilliant man who really brought a lot of Rajasthani folk arts together, a special contribution towards folk tales. He really compiled. He has a volume of like 7 or 8 books of Rajasthani folk tales, and they are all in Marwadi. So just to connect back with Marwadi was interesting. So all of that was sort of coming together, and you know, it was like, things were happening impulsively. And then was the time. So after the 5 to 6 months, then was the time to put it together structurally. And because we are from theater, we first thing which comes to our mind is, let's do a theatrical performance. So we made this big, huge paintings like 4 feet by 2 feet on rollers, and they will move in space. I will move. I will do movement. There will be puppets in space. There will be live musician. So we thought as theater people, and I did some shows of it. I was not satisfied for some reason. I feel, no, this looks too jazzy. This is not what I felt when I was doing research, and I go a lot with intuition. Most of my work, I make choices purely with intuition. It just didn't feel right. And that is when I went to New York for my further studies, and that is where a lot of things started opening up in terms of, because हमारे यहाँ पे हम theater पढ़ते नहीं है ना, हम करते हैं.
Right.
We just do it and we learn, and there's beauty in that. There's definitely a lot of beauty in just doing stuff and learning as we go. But then there is also, I am a science background person. For me, formal training is very important. I mean, my mind works only through formal training. That's my limitation, or whatever you want to call it. So when I had a formal training, I really learned from Anne what is structure. What exactly do you mean by structure? What is language? What does it mean to have elements? When you say that you are engaging with a tradition, what does it mean to engage with a tradition? To be really critical about your work, to be really, really honest and look at things, what you say and what you do and what is coming across. What is the relationship between them? And all my training is in postmodernism. None of it is in traditional art. But it helped me really look at the tradition. It really helped me. I started creating framework. I started creating kind of structure within that. And what happened is it became story within a story within a story within a story structure. And the language was already there because it came out impulsively. But then it started putting into a structure of some kind. That is when I said, okay, let me attempt a traditional version, or maybe a storytelling version of Coward. It was difficult because I have to just sit and perform. No movement of any kind, all on the voice, which is also true about the Kawadiyas. But then we added a couple of things. To it. My son, sorry.
Yeah, is he around?
No, he just went away. So we added a couple of things which I will demonstrate, and then you will see what are the things which I added.
Sure.
It's not a ritualistic performance. It is not a Coward village performance, because first it is in Hindi. So yeah, so it's not that. And I'm very clear about what I'm doing, and I'm interested in the art part of Coward, and not necessarily the ritual part of Coward.
Right.
I can demonstrate a bit of it.
Yes, we all are waiting.
Okay. So this is Coward box. This is Coward box. Here you go. Yeah.
Now you can see on speaker view. Everybody can do that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Can I go? Am I? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
We can't see your face though, but we can.
Yeah. I've focused more on this.
All right.
So that,
Okay.
so that
Sure.
it is more
Thanks.
visible to everyone. Cool. So this is Coward box. This is one of the katha or storytelling version which we happen to write. There is more. We have also written recently for Ravi Shankar. So this is Pandit Ravi Shankar's sitarist, Ravi Shankar's 100th birth anniversary year. So Indian Music Experience asked us to write something on him in Coward form. I didn't write a biography, which I said I can't write. I don't want to write. I will write my own folk tale, my own version of folk story about a musician, and I did that. And we premiered it. So this is a version called Maya. This is a box which is about Maya. That is why it is called Coward Katha Maya. And these are the two gatekeepers. So I will tell how it goes. It begins very informally. I'm not getting into that. I'm just directly jumping into the beginning of the thing. So ये कावड़ है और मैं आपका कावड़िया. जो सुनने वाला हो, इसमें कहानियों का बुना माया जाल है. इसमें कहानियों का बुना माया जाल है, और जो सुनने वाला हो सुना सकता हूँ. मैं इसमें उतर कर कहानियों को किस्सों को जिंदा कर सकता हूँ, और जो सुनने वाला हो सुना सकता हूँ. ये कावड़ के किवाड़ हैं और ये दोनों उसके द्वारपाल. इनकी इजाजत के बिना ये किवाड़ खुल नहीं सकते और हम कावड़ में जा नहीं सकते. इजाजत लेना बहुत जरूरी है. इजाजत लेने से पहले ये जानना जरूरी है कि ये दोनों कौन हैं. तो ये दोनों भाई हैं आप इस कावड़ को देख के ये समझ सकते हैं कि भाई आपके मन में जो कहानी आए आप बना सकते हो। ऐसी कोई हमारे जरूरत वाली बात नहीं कि एक चित्र का एक ही कहानी हो। मेरे मन में ये क्या कहानी आ सकती है भाई, कोई भी कहानी आ सकती है हमारे मन में। हम ये कह सकते हैं कि ये दोनों जो है वो फुटबॉल के प्लेयर हैं, कि ये दोनों भाई जो हैं ये एक दुश्मन है, कि ये दोनों जो है वो कोई खजाना खोजने निकले हैं। हम जो चाहे वो कहानी बना सकते हैं। इस कावड़ में इनकी कहानी ये है कि ये दोनों भाई हैं पर अलग खून है दोनों में। जैसे मन से हाथ छूटा माया जाल में फंस गए। अरे प्रेम किया एक ही लड़की से फिर ज्ञान विवेक भी क्या करे। वो काल चक्र की बेटी थी विष्णु की मुंह बोली बहन। वासना में नैन शुद्ध हुए नदी किनारे अकेला देखकर झपट पड़े शूरवीर। पर काल की दृष्टि कहाँ नहीं कर कैद यहाँ पर छोड़ दिया। अरे मिटा दिया देश मिटा दिया भूत मिटा दिया देश। अब खोए बेटों की तलाश में बाप बड़ा विचलित हुआ। भक्त बाप ने तब किया विष्णु को प्रसन्न किया पर बीता हुआ काल और घूमा हुआ चक्र विष्णु स्वयं फिरा नहीं सकता। तब विष्णु ने इस कावड़ में किस्सों समेत इन दोनों की पहचान छुपाई। विष्णु का एक रूप तो कृष्ण भी है। पहचान के साथ एक शर्त बनाई कि किस्सों के इस कावड़ में जो जाएगा वो या तो खुद खो जाएगा या इन दोनों की पहचान लेकर ही वापस आएगा। So this is roughly how it begins in our case. I will stop and go so that I can also explain the form. Usually in a coward ritual, they will start with talking about a lot of gods.
Yeah.
They will say, अच्छा ब्रह्मा को बुलाएंगे, विष्णु को बुलाएंगे, महेश को बुलाएंगे, हमारे महाराज साहब को बुलाएंगे, बाबा जी को बुलाएंगे. I mean, they will take permission from every god. Basically, there is a list of gods. And
But I'm going to ask everybody to unmute and give you a round of applause. This is really, really beautiful.
Yay! It is.
For you as we go along, I will
Very
open more.
interesting.
I will open more.
Chetna, excuse me, can I suggest something, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Chetna, if you can put Akshay window on a spotlight, then he shall remain on a spotlight. So, you know, your reactions of laughter or ha, so then the window will not shift. I'm sorry, but then I'm ready.
Right?
Yeah.
A spotlight video.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spotlight video. So, yeah, because I'm too intrigued with this cover. Yeah. Go on. Good. Thank you.
Done. Thank you.
So I will open more covered as we go along, as I explain what this is and how this works.
Okay. Thank you. This was
so
great.
So this opens. Shall I open it and show it to you?
Yes.
So basically, once you take permission, it opens. It start opening the doors, and you see paintings. And as you see paintings, I tell stories on the paintings, and you close, and then you open more of it, and then you open more of it, and then you go boom, and open more of it.
Lovely.
Open more of this. Then you open more of this.
So beautiful. So do you paint them or do you get it?
No. So I have a collaborator. His name is Rohit Bhasi, and Rohit is a visual artist, painter, illustrator. His what do you call his painting name is Indigo Oranges, and we started collaborating with Coward 3 years ago when we made this Coward, and then he also delved more deeper into the folk forms, folk art. He studied a lot of temple architecture. He really studied how Indian paintings have been worked, and yeah, he do a lot of interesting work other than this as well. So he's Rohit Bhasi. He's my collaborator, and we continue to work together.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So this, sorry, go ahead. I don't know how to take it forward. I'm just saying that there is a ritual associated with this entire thing. Yes. And they tell stories from epics, Rama and Mahabharata, and then they go to local heroes, local gods. And in our case, no, we don't do that. We don't do any of that. For us, gods. It's not religious. Okay. So, okay. So tell me if I should speak more or wherever you want to take it.
We actually wanted to be look like people, of course, artists in India or practitioners of any form of theatre, like we do applied theatre in Rangbhumi, or people are playbackers or they're mainstream actors. I'm quite always, when we like right now, because of Zoom, we've been going a lot of international theatre of your press jokering sessions, playback theatre sessions. There are a lot of other drama therapy sessions. So there is a lot of talk about research, documentation, So I wanted to understand from you, because you've spent a lot of time at SITI. So SITI is where I think you met Anne Bogart's,
Mhm.
at the Anne Bogart's Institute.
Mhm.
So what do you think is a way forward for us back in India in terms of performance and research, these two words? And how do you do that?
For me, research is important. I don't think as an artist one is also researching if you're an actor or whatever. You're researching a character or you're researching content, but there is something which is very specific about researching for performance. Like when we research in science, there is an experiment. Yeah, there is a setup, and that setup is basic set of basic assumptions. And there's an input, there's a processing, and there's an output, and the results are based on these basic assumptions. And because I come from science, I was like, okay, how do you do research in performance or art for that matter? Because it is so subjective. It is so subjective. What are the basic assumptions? There can be no basic assumptions. So when I went to SITI, it was also primarily in search of finding a research methodology, or just doing research. I just want to go deeper into arts and not depend on projects. So till then I was dependent on, okay, I do some project, I understand something. I did cover, oh, I understood something new. So it was always about understanding things, new things. And in research, it is not necessarily about understanding more things. It might be about understanding one thing deeply. And that I didn't had a sense of, and I didn't feel that in my environment in Bangalore theater scene that people are actually interested in. People are, at least in my circle, my friend circle, my colleagues, they were interested in just multiple plays. They were interested in doing more and more and more work, and not one work, or maybe go deeper into one work. So it is, when you speak about research in India as such, I will come to how I'm trying to work on it. I don't know, because one of the thing is we look at art as something which is only impulsive or intuitive. It is art. It is subjective. You don't need to have reasons. You don't need to have rigor. I'm not saying all artists. I by myself know some artists who are extraordinarily great, especially obviously Adishakti. We might all know, which is an research laboratory in Pondicherry on theater. Uh, so I didn't know how to do research. And SITI company, what they have is a framework. The framework comes from viewpoints, and viewpoints is a practice developed by a dancer called Mary Overley. So she, over years, observed, very deeply observed nature, and she also observed multiple artwork, from postmodern to modern to impressionist to dance, all of that. And she tried looking at what she observes in nature, and what is it that she's observing in art, which is really really powerful, which really impacts her. And she over many years of her work, and because she's herself a dancer and a theater person, she started experimenting with herself. And as she started doing that, she realized that there are common fundamentals, like for example space, time, matter, like mass, body, we all understand. No scientist question the idea of space, right? Nobody questioned the idea of quantum, or nobody questioned the idea of matter. There is matter, and on that basic assumption, or gravity, we all know that it is a fundamental principle, and on top of it then you make discoveries. So this entire framework of viewpoints provide you how can you practice something which is fundamental, which you don't have to define, because it is available to you by default as universe. So universe gives you space, universe gives you time, or at least perception of time. Universe gives you shape, some kind of articulation. Universe gives you emotion or expression. Universe gives us movement of some kind. Universe gives us ability to perceive a story or logic. Like right now we are speaking on this thing, we are completely in different space but sharing this time, and yet we agree to this logic. This is possible, this is not magic for us. So that's logic, that's the ability to do logic. Based on these framework, her entire practice is developed, which is what Anne Bogart took forward and developed into a theatrical practice. A practice for practitioners to develop theatrical language, for actors to go deeper into their acting, for directors to make more cutting edge theater, for choreographers, for filmmakers. Even viewpoints is used in space navigation. So this framework was then start fleshing out, and it is taught at SITI company specifically. It is taught at different places in different ways. At some places we are really, people from SITI company don't like the way it is taught at many places, but that's fine. But the way they teach it, at least the way they facilitate, is they focus on how you develop your own personalized viewpoints. Yeah, so that you don't have to worry about how can I go deeper into my craft, how can I make my own theater better, how can I make my own art better, or my own studies, my own learning curve better. So it is more of a practice which gives you a platform on which you can help to jump from, and it works across board. I trained a physical trainer, and he says he uses it extensively. He has done his physical training has become so much more better because he's able to make discoveries. So it is basically on a premise of curiosity, that you have a curiosity and you start investigating into these fundamental frameworks. So that then became, I can latch on to something, So when I look at a Kudiyatam performance, I can say, oh, okay, let me look at it from point of view of space. Like, let me look at it from point of view of time. Let me look at it from the way they have treated rhythm. They have treated movement. They have treated what is the treatment they have in their aesthetic form, right? And that became a very important part. That helped me make what Coward is today. So it became a place of lenses. I can put those glasses and see, and then put another glasses and see something else, right? And the beauty is viewpoints. Mary says, actually speaking, all of it is together. They are not separate.
Yeah.
You separate it so that you can investigate, and then it has to come back together.
Yes.
Which is also deconstructionist theory of deconstruct and reconstruct. But there was still a problem in terms of performance as research. So there's a phrase for it called performance as research. So I understood how to do aesthetics, how to understand, how to deconstruct, how to recreate new aesthetics, how to sort of put things together and do further research. But there was still something which all the actors on board, or all of us who have ever gone on stage, craft is on one side and energy is on the other side. Yeah, when we feel that we are in today, we burn the stage. Yeah, we are so much. So there's something which is very visceral, something which is about being an actor, being a performer, which nobody can take away, from stage, right? And there's something about that mystical thing, and that was still I'm like, oh, how do I research that? Because without that, I don't think it's theater. Then it's just a mechanical construction of a building, right? And then I can be a good analyst looking at a building and talk about it. I still don't know energy part of it. So I went to Odin, which is in Denmark, which is basically a research laboratory. So SITI company is primarily a theater company. They do research, but they don't do research for research. They do research for themselves so that they can create better and better theater. Whereas Odin is a place where they do research. Like literally, they have a laboratory, they have an archive, they have researchers dedicated to work on performance research. They publish papers. They have conferences on papers. They have conferences where they bring artists from all over the world, from classical background to traditional background to contemporary artists, and share how they look at their art. And that is the environment which I was looking for as a second step. So now my research after Odin's, after I was there for 2 months in this kind of environment, now my research goes on two parallels. One is on the craft, one is the technicals. What is the technical part of anything? Like how if I have to make a building, I need to have technical knowledge of a building. If I have to make a drawing, I need to have a canvas. I need to have some knowledge of colors, of pencil. So technicalities, and then sensibilities. Right? I have a sensibility. I don't like that sofa there. What is the technical reason? No technical reason. It's my taste. So sensibilities. Yeah, you like to dress up in a certain way. Somebody else. So that's taste. That's sensibility.
Correct.
And so then I started looking at technicalities separately and sensibilities separately. And that is where now the framework is for me. Personally speaking, that is where I am in my research. That is what I know clearly. So when we do a production, so my reasons to do most of my theater productions, including Coward, is that it gives me an opportunity to experiment. It gives me an opportunity. Okay, I understood technicals, I understood sensibilities, but understanding is easy. I mean, anyone can understand, what big deal, right? But when I see it happening on floor, I connect with it. I understand, this is how it is transforming. This is the role it has. It gives me more learning in terms of why art is art, and why, for example, anything can be art, but why there is a specificity that this is art. Right? And that is how I research. I research on floor with my actors, with a company of people who are interested in such kind of experiments, irrespective of we are making a play or not. Yeah, and most of the time we take like 2 years to make a play, and most of the actors don't have that much patience. So
Yeah.
that is why we have very few people in the company. And that is my way of doing research, to analyze, to try out things on floor. And that is exactly what I do also with other training which I do, with terms of storytelling or voice work or body work, whatever. It is about, this is how we facilitated, this
Hmm.
is what people took, and this is how they have started exploring,
Yeah,
right?
sure. This
So
just wanted to confirm, Odin is in Denmark, is it? The
yes, yes,
country?
it's in
Yeah.
Denmark. It's one of the oldest surviving theater company, a
Yes.
company theater basically. A
Yes.
lot of theater they do and a lot of research.
And Akshay, do you also have workshops around? Because I'm sure, I mean, we know that we called you here in Bombay last year,
Mm.
and it was great to experience your work, and we still use those viewpoints for
Mm.
this. Extremely interesting. But in Bangalore, do you also, I'm sure with the lockdown, of course, getting over,
Mm.
do you also call people from as participants in Bangalore and do these workshops? Do you?
Yeah. So what I do, so I have to pick topics, and I struggled with voice a lot.
Hmm.
So for me, it took a lot of time, a lot of teachers' hard work on me to get me to a basic voice, like basic voice as actor. Uh, After a lot of struggle. So what I started doing is I started putting those learning together. I started experimenting with bodies. I started putting like, okay, what makes voice voice? So that was my last research, and that is when I started opening up a workshop called Art of Speaking, which is basically about breath, voice, and text. And
Okay.
I've worked with people from school to corporates. Like there are project managers of 55, 56 year old to a 12-year-old girl from a school. She comes in, and then last year I did an interesting experiment around it.
Hmm.
So there is a foundation here called Snehadhara Foundation. They
Okay.
work with children of autistic spectrum,
Hmm.
and they called me, said, can you take a coward workshop? And I said, I have never worked with children of special need, and I don't want to be insensitive, I don't want to say something because of my ignorance, and can I come and observe? And they said, okay, you come and observe. And then I said, only then I can share if I'm capable enough to bring anything on the floor. So they let me in, which was great. And I observed and I realized, again, viewpoints helped me like thoroughly. Viewpoints made me understand, looked at this room, which I had no clue about how to look at this room, right? I have no clue about how to understand, because they were different, and I don't know uh, how to be sensitive, or how to be correct in this room. I understood what is going on, what I can bring on table. I said I can do two things. I will not be able to do coward, but I will do two things, and this will be a 7-day thing which we will do. I will work with viewpoints, only space, and I will work with voice, because most of the children, except one person, they think they're producing sound, but actually the sound is not getting produced because of a lot of muscular tensions, a lot of psychological tensions. Yeah, and it's a spectrum. So each student is not, they are not of the same level of uh, their health,
Hmm.
right? So I said I will work on these two things and let's see where it goes. But I will need a facilitator from your side who can stop me, who can tell me that this is right, this is this much you can push, this much you cannot push, these
Hmm.
things you can do and these things you cannot do. At the end of the 7 day, what we found as a result, and I had no clue how things will work. So I told them I can't guarantee you anything because I don't know. And they said that's fine. We had most of them producing sound,
Ah.
and they are all of different age. Most of them are 40 plus, but their
Okay.
mind's age is around 4 or 5.
Mhm.
And because the voice techniques which I happen to learn from my teachers are fundamental, they work at a muscular neuropsychological level, because I
Mhm.
had a lot of them. So it worked. Second, their sense of space became better.
Mhm.
They stopped colliding into the wall, for example. And they said, what did you do in 7 days? I said, I'm also making my notes, wait a second. And then last year we had an engagement. I will go once in a week and spend some time. And I focused on voice and space and time. So so the results which we understood, I still have to put them together. We just finished before the lockdown. Is that they now understand when they take them for a field trip, like to Hopcoms or some vegetable buying, they move their legs if they see someone walking, which is a huge, because they understand space. They understand space around them now, right? And I've not done it as a thing for special needs children. I did just viewpoints. I didn't do anything special, and that is what I have been telling them. Because these are so fundamental things, space, time, emotion are so fundamental that it is not a framework for special needs children. I can't say that. I can't claim that. I'm no one to claim that. But I can share this, and if it works, and that became a really good thing for me, because I gained deeper satisfaction with the work I started doing. So yeah, this is where the research sort of comes together, and how you have to work with different mediums, different places, with children or with adults, because
So sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, because you mentioned about children and you work with 12 years old also. There are these, maybe I can blend these two questions. One is that of course, as artists, actors, storytellers, even as people in the corporate who give presentations, or people in everyday life, we indulge in conversations. So how do you approach these stories? Because a lot of time we've been told to kind of animate and make yourself large to children or your audience. So what is your perspective? And second, how do you feel that a realistic drama and the children's theater, is there a difference, or how do you approach that?
Right. I will take the first one first. I don't think there is something like, my personal belief, I don't think children's work is working like or being childish. Yeah, because most of the I mean, it is possible even in my work I might become childish, imagining or thinking that I'm working with children, right? I need not. I mean, I have a son who's 4-year-old, and he teaches me every day. He know when it is overacting. He know when this animation was not required. Yeah, he knows. So what I think ultimately children love is dynamics. To be honest, what they love is dynamics, and dynamics can come from anywhere. Dynamics can come from, so it's a right balance between animation. Usually animation is something which helps us, we can do this and we can do that and this. So this can bring in dynamics, or it can also bring a lot of clutter. And one need to really understand the difference between clutter and dynamics. So I can still be animated, and yet you should be able to follow with me, right? And that dynamics, those children are honest about, if this is not dynamic, they are bored, right? And which also means that in communication and teaching children, there has to be a sense of dynamics. Now dynamics can come through telling a story to them, or you being animated, or you have so now energy, the research which is my current focus, is energy. How do I look at that in my practice, and how do I bring it out on the floor? I have no framework, no facilitation right now for energy, but it is true that the kind of the quality of energy the facilitator brings in the room changes a lot. There are also questions. Sorry, I just happened to notice chat box.
Can you please explain dynamics a little more?
Yeah. So dynamics of so two elements, they're interacting with each other, and two elements can be anything. Two elements can be my phone and my mouse. Yeah, and the way they are going to interact with each other is dynamics. It will create a sense of dynamics. It will create a sense of life, or kind of movement, right? And that is something which one as actor or director or any kind of facilitator need to have a grasp on. I can speak slowly and yet create some kind of interesting dynamics, or I can speak fast and yet not create interesting dynamics, right? Or might create. So dynamics is something which is emerging because of relationships, because of how two objects or more objects are interacting, like a teacher interacting with children, or 5 children interacting with each other, or 1,500 people looking at a television screen and interacting. So what comes out of interaction is what I'm calling dynamics, right? And that dynamics is something which we need to have a cue on, right? And while making work for children, again, I necessarily never make work for children. I really want to. This year, one of the goals at Still Space is to make one play dedicated for children. But my son is always in rehearsal room. He watches everything which we are doing. Our shows are open for everyone, from children to adults. No, we never tell them to switch off their mobile phone. Yeah, we want to just keep it as live as possible. So So the point is that yes, there are things which you take, and then there are things which you leave. Right? What we demand as parents most of the time from my children is that, why you should be there for 1 hour, attentively watch this theater piece. Why? If I enjoyed the first 15 minutes and then I just want to walk out, that's great. Maybe they want to wander on what they absorbed in the last 15 minutes. So this expectation is what is problematic. I don't need to glue the children necessarily. They need to be interested, and there should be space for wandering and for taking off their own imagination, right? So I think that was first question. I don't know if
sure.
Yeah.
And about the realistic theater and
Realistic theater, if we go into the technical details of things, I don't think there is anything called realistic theater. Because theater by nature is not realistic, right? If somebody enters on stage, it is not real. But if we understand the conventions of realism, that it looks like life, if that is what we mean, then again it is not possible, purely because a writer of usually a realistic play is a written play, a scripted play. You can also devise it, but usually it is a scripted play. The writer has consciously chosen certain words. Writer has consciously taken away certain parts of time, right? It is not functioning in our real time. No cinema is functioning on real time. Suddenly the line finishes and the phone rings. How much time it happens in real life? Never.
Yes.
Yeah. The phone was not waiting for us to ring, or somebody will enter just at the moment when this is finishing, because the writer is trying to maintain the dynamics. The writer is trying to maintain a certain kind of flow. So if done well, I think children will be glued. The only reason children might not be glued is the content. That it might not be a content of their interest. It might not be a content which they relate with. Right? Ultimately, if you don't relate with this, then what is it that I'm here for? Then yes, you can still be there for energy. For example, I have watched a lot of plays which are in other language, which I have no clue what is going on, and I'm still sitting there watching it. Because one, I have curiosity, and second, there is brilliant energy on at work, right? Because it's a brilliant energy at work, I can still take a lot. So it takes both sides. If a child might not be interested in this content, might not relate with it, and might not also relate with the kind of energy which is there on stage. That is also why we a lot of times do animation. Because children are high energy, so they are moving. So they might relate with that energy, right? And hence we jump into animation. And hence we say, oh, let's start with animation. But it has to go somewhere with that. So realism as such, I think it can work. Again, it has to be relatable. It has to be, I have seen a children's production, super realistic, done by high school people in the US. And I was like, wow, man, this, we don't have quality of such plays in like professional companies. And it was full of children. The entire auditorium was full of children because the content was relatable, right? And the energy was relatable. So that is about real. What was the second thing you asked?
Yeah. So these two questions.
Realism के बाद में साथ में
Yeah, and children's theater, because time children do ask us, अरे ऐसा क्यों करा रहे हैं आप? ऐसा थोड़ी होता है reality में.
So yeah, but that is a separate one actually. I can elaborate a little. So children's theater is roughly a new phenomena as such, because children make their own theater most of the time. Yeah, they are happy making their own theater with the tent and all of that. But children's theater is relatively a new phenomenon. I happen to act in a couple of plays which are done as a children's play. There's a technique called grips.
Grips theater.
Yeah, grips theater. So one of my fellow directors, she was trained in grips, and she said, "Oh, we have to make some plays," and we made some plays. So some learnings from there. I think children's plays are necessary. It needs definitely it needs a different kind of mind, more than technique. It needs a different kind of mind, because she was very sensitive. My director who was directing, her name is Padmavati Rao. She is so she has a very clear sensitive, she was very sensitive about what children will perceive, and is this what we want children to perceive at this age, because it's a fragile age, right? So it is very important, I felt, that whatever we do on stage, if it is for children's theater, we need to understand what is it doing to the child, or potentially doing it to the child, and second, is it allowing them to open their own imagination? So if we are doing Cinderella, if we are doing Ramayana, I mean, whatever world which is mythical world, which things happen, people fly, people go from here to there, yeah. It is primarily so that first, if they relate with it, it will open a content which is magical, which will let them fly through a lot of things, which will help them say, okay, it's not real, but it's fun. It's not real, but it's interesting. Because if a world like this existed, this is what I will take from this. Right? If a Aladdin world existed, maybe I'll take friendship from this, and that is something which we might need to bridge sometimes. Right? And that is one of the reasons I'm a little scared of making a work dedicated for children. And this year, my aim is to overcome that fear and hopefully make something. I don't know.
We will wait and watch. Let's watch. Yes. Okay. So thank you. And time for now, where we're going to open it to the audience here. If you have comments, questions to ask, Akshay is right here. Anything that you want to, you can type, you can share, you can be on off video and still talk. We'll be all sorts welcome. Whatever you want to ask, you want to just comment.
There are a couple on the group chat.
Yeah, I'm reading that. I'm reading that.
Yes, it was the cover which I showed was same as the playback gathering cover.
Yeah, there's one of your students asking who attended your workshop in Bombay gathering. She's asking, is the same that you got here in Bombay?
Yeah, this cover is same.
Anuradha, do you want to ask something?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
Firstly, I would want to say something.
Yes.
And it's been a blessing to watch you, Akshay, when you do your Kavar Katha, because to speak non-stop for 45 minutes with that dialect, and not even for a second you lose it. So, when I saw you for the first time, okay, I think I can go here saying that I fell in love with the way you narrated the story. So, yeah, it was so special, and I went back searching on what is Kavar Katha and where it came from.
Yes, that was our aim. That is exactly our aim is.
Yeah, so I think that solves. So it makes you more curious to know about where this art form came from and what are the rituals and traditions, and then Kawad Bandhna and all that I kind of read about. So I think this is a great initiative to make all of us understand about our traditions. We have so much in India, and I don't think we have to peep outside. So thank you for that. And also I want to ask, here I have a question. Do you think illustrations are very important to keep the audience glued?
Yes. So for example, we don't perform in a traditional way as such. I mean, traditionally there will be 15-20 members of the village, and they will already know the story of Ramayana or Mahabharata. So usually Kavadia will point with a peacock feather. This is the painting I'm telling, and then go to the story. We usually have more than 15-20, I mean 30-40 people most probably, right? So we added the ideas of gesture in the entire thing.
Right.
Because we also wanted to reach out to the person who is sitting towards the end.
Yes.
And also because these stories are not the stories which you already know, which is unlike the traditional thing. In tradition, they already know the story. So they are here to listen to the language, listen to the philosophy behind it. Whereas in this case, you also need to follow the story. So I need to reinforce, I need to subconsciously drop in your heads these characters. I can't do it as a corporate person talking about, okay, this is the character, this is the character, this is the character, because that will be like just boring.
Yeah.
So I have to reinforce a couple of things in your minds as you go along. That is why maybe if you have seen the performance, the performance stays with you at least for that night.
Purely for many days.
So purely, and it is purely technical, by the way. What I'm saying here is, it is no magic. It is just technical. I need to ensure that at right moment I do a gesture which your peripheral vision of your eye look at, and it stays in your mind. Yeah, I'm doing it pure technically, by the way. Yeah, and it goes boom into your mind, irrespective of you know the language or not. So there's a tonality which will come accompanied by a gesture with a painting, and irrespective of language, you will grasp it, right?
Yeah.
And such things we have added. So we have added a little more focus on the visual art, like the new project which we have done with Ravi Shankar. We've added a lot more focus on the visual art. I let the painting stay for a while before I continue to speak. because that is where I want to take my craft forward. And me being quiet, and can this performance still be dynamic? Can this performance still work without me being all over the place, right? So yes, illustration is important part of our work. What is also important for our work is gestures.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So you forget Shah Rukh Khan's Maya, and I only now know Akshay's Maya. So yes.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Shah Rukh Khan
I
should know
think
this.
I must write this on the Facebook post tomorrow. Super, super. Thank you. Anybody else? Thanks, Anuradha, for this lovely
So it
question.
says,
Hi,
what is
Divya,
it?
I saw you putting off mute. Sorry.
Hello.
Yes, yes. Go
Hi,
ahead.
Deepashri on this side, Akshay.
Neha.
Lovely hearing about your experiences and the fact that somebody is speaking so passionately about theater research, right? It's a very forgotten aspect as per from where I am sitting from. I belong to the corporate space, not just theater, but the usage of theater seems to be very limited from where I come from.
Mhm.
And the more theater research you do, you realize that the theater exists more outside the stage into real
Yeah.
life, and especially corporate life where the drama is very real. How
Yeah.
do you then how do you then kind of take these sensitivities and possibly communicate this in a corporate context to people to make them realize that these techniques really work, or how can we leverage them?
Right.
Thank you.
So thank you for asking. I don't do a lot of corporate work. I'm really bad at yeah, a lot of things. So what happens is when somebody says, "Can you come and do stuff?" and I said, "Yeah, I will come and do stuff." And then I start researching. Like Infosys asked me, "Can you do something on gender?" What they said, sensitization. I said, "Oh, okay. I don't know what is gender sensitization. Give me a month and I'll come to you guys." So I did something like that, and I do a lot of voice work with them. What I learned about corporate, and because I also have a background in corporate for a couple of years, I realized it is more of a product oriented or a goal oriented mind, where it's like, okay, what does it do? What does it do? What do I get out of this? Right? And
True.
so yeah, you want to say something?
No, true.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah,
with you. It's a
yeah,
very
right.
goal
So
oriented
now
thought process. Yeah.
then it is very important for me as an artist to tell them what is my position. So I deny calling myself a corporate trainer purely because of that reason, just to make a statement that, look, the session you are getting into, if you are getting into it, it is not a corporate session, which means this mindset, let's say for now, let's keep it aside. Anyway, you have it, right? Anyway, you have that beautiful option of thinking about the goal and going for it. Now, for now, let's keep it aside for this session. So first thing I do is I tell them this is not a corporate training session. It's an art session. I emphasize on me being an artist rather than me being a trainer. Second, what I try to do it is I make them aware of things which they already have. So more and more I do research in theater, what I realize is basically my research is all about telling me who I am much better. That's all. Ultimately, it's telling me more about the world I inhabit, right? So that is the mindset I also bring into the work. Sometimes people don't relate with it. They see it's too philosophical, but I don't already obviously speak about it. We do sessions, we do activities around it to make them understand it's nothing new. It is something which you already have. Art is not something new. It is already what you have. You might do it good or you might not do it good. That's a different thing, and good and bad again is subjective. So voice you already have. You have an instrument which you are born with, which is capable of producing sound. We have already evolved to a point that genetically now we can acquire language. So it is something which we already have. So once let's connect with that and let's see where it goes. Let's see how creative we can become with these skills. And then and in that journey there is a role of techniques, right? But that journey is important, and within that you say, oh, can I do it better? And I say, yeah, you can. Look at this technique. Yeah, look at this very simple technique of storytelling called beginning, middle, end. As simple as it might sound, it is one of the most phenomenal technique, because beginning, middle, and end, as you go deeper into it, it's like, wow, this is so much, so great. To just have a lens of beginning, middle, end, and say, let me refine it further, right? So until and unless we don't put them on this artistic journey, I'm sharing my the way I look at training. Yeah, I'm not saying this is how it should be. Is that I put them on an artistic journey, and within that, then there are technicalities. I tried to reduce the quantification in my way of reducing, because it is already there in their life so much. Then what is it that I'm adding to their life? Why are we spending this time together? It has to have some value. So I reduce the quantification of it and focus more on the personal experience. Did you reach where you reach? So I don't think this is kind of an answer to what, or a conversation we can take it.
Dipashri?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
beautiful. I think my question got answered. I was looking for perhaps something of this kind. May connect with Akshay separately all as well if I have any more queries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Neha, you wanted to say something? Yes.
Yeah, hi Akshay.
Hey Neha.
Good to see you.
Hey.
And बहुत अच्छा लगा तुम्हारा कावड़ सुन के. मेरा मन था देखने का बहुत टाइम से. So आज glimpse मिला. I hope to see you live
बॉम्बे आएंगे
sometime.
तब. Yes, आप बॉम्बे में है ना?
बिल्कुल.
Yes.
So no, मुझे ये पूछना था कि I could actually hear a change in your voice. पहले से अभी. So I'm really curious कि क्या problems थे और कैसे solve किया तुमने? Like
बहुत
what
problems थे. बहुत सारे problems थे. So Neha and we worked on a play together called SITI. It was, I think, 8 years ago, I guess, 7 or 8 years ago in Bangalore.
Yeah, and even Ghar, our dance theater.
Oh, right. Yes. Oh, yeah. I totally forgot about that. Yes, yes. So Neha, I mean, you have heard me before. So there were a lot of problems because I came from an engineering background. I mean, I'm not blaming the engineering background. It's just that when you study a lot like this, there are a lot of tensions which you build here, right? A lot of tensions get built here. A lot of behavior get influenced, come from what you do in life. So voice for me, or even speaking text, is more of a body-mind phenomena, which includes physicality, it's a physical act. I inhale, my lungs expand, my diaphragm goes down, I engage with my gut muscle, and breath goes out, sound gets produced, it gets into our resonators, and it gets amplified, and then it is reaching out. So there are a lot of things which are working at play. There's psyche at work, there are emotions at work, there are physicality, muscular things at work. For me, psyche definitely something which was the biggest challenge after a point, but the biggest challenge in the beginning, after we met, after we worked, was the muscular tension. I had a huge muscular tension from my neck to my chest to my back of my muscles, and those muscular tensions won't let me make use of resonators. It won't let me open up my throat. It won't let me do, and I didn't know it. I went to everyone in India, wherever it was possible. I will not name, but I went everywhere. Except couple of changes, it didn't improve because everyone was teaching theater. I mean, this is something which I really want to say, why I do research in theater and why I'm so interested in facilitation, is that people teach theater, I mean, they just tell what to do instead of being invested in each person. You know, I mean, I learned a lot from my masters. I learned from a lot of my masters in India, but it's just that the kind of environment we have about learning is that, you know, this is what you should do, and you do it. You figure it out. How? Where am I getting stuck? What are the technical parts where I'm getting stuck? Which is where my teachers could see from outside, and they will push me. They will push me, resolve this muscle, resolve, like specific muscle, resolve it. And then next day, resolve this muscle, resolve this breathing. I will feel like a pressure cooker if I hold my breath in my body, purely because I had muscular tension here, which was completely wrong. Now, I'm getting seriously super technical here, but there is a muscle here which needs to be relaxed while you are speaking, and I couldn't relax it. And because I couldn't relax it, I couldn't channelize my breath. And because I couldn't channelize my breath, it will come out like this, right? And those technical details only those teachers could see from outside, and they helped me resolve. So physical tensions, I would say, now when I work with actors and managers and leaders, whatever, I see muscular tension is the bigger part of the problem, and breathing is the second part. Breathing for life, for pranayama, is different. Breathing for speaking is different. So breathing is key. If I can share a tip with you, it's just breathe. Notice how breath changes when you speak, and practice that breathing if you don't speak. It might not be great for elongating our lives, but it is required for speaking, right? So things like that. And there There's a lot more to it, but breadth, I think, is ultimately key.
Sure. Thank you. And जो तुमने बोला psyche वाला part, like the other part to it. What does that mean? Like in a couple of lines?
Psyche, yeah. For example, how do I notice someone's psyche? I notice because psyche manifests itself into behavior. How I behave. Like recently, I realized that after lockdown, I stopped replying to people's messages. I don't even look at my phone. Now, it's a behavior. Now, behavior is a result of how I think or how my mind is functioning, right? How my mind is analyzing my reality or my immediate situation, right? And through behaviors, we understand our own psyche. So I will notice that I will, for example, in terms of speaking, I will have a lot of psychological blocks in terms of, oh, maybe I should not speak like that. Oh, because I inherited a couple of behaviors because of my upbringing. That behavior will also impact how much I should speak, what I should speak, what I should hesitate, what I should not hesitate. Whereas as actors, you should be super vulnerable. You should be ready to speak whatever way you want to speak, even if it looks pathetic. That is not the criteria that I look good or bad as actor. I look as is required. So to be able to overcome that, I mean, also in acting we call it, no, कि क्या कहते हैं, inhibition hai, right? And that inhibition reflects in voice. It does come directly, and we don't know it because actually speaking, you cannot hear your own voice. You can only sense it. It is like movement. You can't see your own body moving, but you feel it how you moved. Similarly, voice, because you can't hear it, because it goes out, come back, it's already a distorted voice. It is not exactly what you produce. So that is how it affects. Psyche affects the voice, and we don't even realize it is affecting. Body we notice, but we don't notice it in the voice. और इसकी वजह से वो psychological blocks कई बार solve करना जरूरी होता है. And psychological blocks sometimes are easy to solve and sometimes very difficult.
Yeah. Thanks, Akshay. I'll leave it to others also to ask questions. I'll get in touch later. Bye.
Thank you, Neha. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. I think Neha के सवाल से मुझे अपना posture suddenly I started to move and release.
I should also.
Thank you, and I think we almost had a mini workshop. बहुत सारे tips मिल गए. So, or anybody else?
There is a question about laboratory. What is Yogita? Hi, Yogita.
Yogita, she did ask.
What is it? Laboratory? Odin.
Yes.
It's called ODIN. Odin Teatret.
Yeah.
TEATRET. Odin Teatret. It is also called Nordic Laboratorium Theatre, something in Danish. And they are brilliant. They are really good.
Yeah.
Great.
Suraj, you have a question? Sorry, Yogita, do you want to say more? Did
I just want to say something that last year I had seen and met in brief. I met Akshay in playback gathering which we had, and that performance was there with me for a long time. And yes, your voice, and I was totally in the spiritual space when you were performing, and each and every word was giving knowledge and reminding me of my wisdom. And I really want to appreciate that the whole aura and the vibe which is there when you are performing. Not only when you're performing, we had a brief, I think we just spoke like a little bit. So however, it was so beautiful, and I want to acknowledge and appreciate that. It is such a beautiful gift that you have.
Thank you. It's all.
Thank you, Yogita.
Friends who make me. Everyone I meet.
Suraj, do you want to say something?
Yeah.
Maybe we have time for one or two last comments and questions. Yes.
Okay. So when you're speaking about traditional arts, and also you mentioned about animation also playing a role nowadays. So I was wondering, what would be the key takeaways for children from these types of arts in terms of the advantages in the past, the way they used to be, in the present now, and also in the future?
Right. Again, I might go a little on the artistic side of things, and so just. Am I still visible, right? Yeah, cool. So one thing So you engage with things, and we engage with things in life anyway. We watch television, we meet people, we look at a building, we look at each other, and all of that is impacting us, right? All of it is impacting us in a way we still in science don't understand how exactly things are happening. It's a mix of things. You and I might be looking at the same wall, and what you will perceive and what I will perceive might be a totally different thing, right? And that is exactly, so why I'm going a little far from your question is that is exactly why one should engage with traditional art, because it opens up, oh, things can look like this as well. Because you don't know what part of your mind, what part of yourself will open up when you engage with something which I'm talking about right now. For example, when this art form was practiced before, it might be something which is part of the culture, right? But now when you look at it, the switch looks something which is alien to my usual world. It really opens up. It triggers a lot of neurons scientifically. Boom, boom, boom. Neurons go, which create new paths, which create new learnings, which really open up new channels. So one, that is definitely a big takeaway. I think that is very important for us. That is one of the reasons I watch a lot of theater, which is not in my language. I look at things which I have no clue about, which I might not like at all, and yet it is important because that is, if you notice, that is how all scientists, all leaders, in one way, if we have to connect them, we have all observed things, no, and what we absorb because of observing stays with us and makes us who we are. It becomes something like a personal mythology, right? It's a mix of stories I have listened. It's a mix of experience. It's a mix of so many things. I like to call it personal mythology, and sometimes these art forms help you navigate through mythology, help you make sense of things. That is one big takeaway. I would do it for that. So when I do Kavod show, which is in Hindi, of also of this kind, and they say, my children won't understand this. I said, no, it does not matter. Why do they need to understand? They will hear a sound which they won't otherwise hear. And it's a big gift. You can give your child that they will hear something which sounds different, or look different, or have a different energy to it. That is one. Second, I feel it is important for us to look at these traditional forms of any kind, of any category, because they somehow ingrain what will constitute your basic personal mythology. I can talk about my generation. My generation, irrespective of religion, has an understanding of Alif Laila or Aladdin, Ramayana, Mahabharat, a lot of local stories, a lot of those kind of things. So they create like a basic fabric. Now I might not remember those stories, but that is a basic fabric. Those symbols, those cultural nuances are somewhere deep down there, right? And that fabric needs nourishment all the time, because based on that you bounce on the stories you believe in. What is your personal mythology? All your decisions in your life are all primarily driven by one. Obviously it is also driven by situation, but sometimes I do decision which I know the consequences will be bad, and I still do it. I'm like, why did I do that, knowing the consequences are wrong? Because I'm not driven by consequences most of the time. I'm driven by these mythology, my beliefs and ideas, and that is what is formed on this personal mythology. And these traditions, why they stayed alive for so many years, because they inherently contain these symbols, these nuances. So when I say symbol, I will just give a little elaboration of what I think of symbol. So symbol is a thing which has a functional thing. For example, these gatekeepers, so what is their function? Their function is to be a gatekeeper, but they also look a certain way. They also use a certain color. They might have their own philosophy. They are my own background. So when you look at something on temple or any kind of symbolic world, it becomes symbol only because it includes a lot of things. It does not only about function. It is about its history. It's about its biography. It is about its cultural reason. A Chinese gatekeeper will not look like an Indian gatekeeper. No, a South Indian gatekeeper might be carrying a musical instrument for that matter, because that musical instrument is important to this culture. They might be standing not straight like Greeks, but they might be standing a little more curvy because curves are more important to us. Yeah, there might be a notion of circularity because that is more important to art. And this is how it gets reinforced in our minds. And if people are talking about Indian education, if there is a conversation on it, this is, I think, the most important part. Yeah, this personal mythology, because these are the things we connect with, and that is where I feel it was more strong. What Cover did to me is it told me who I am ultimately, and that is why I continue to do it, because I come from Rajasthan, which means I have to connect with Rajasthan. There is no other way. There is no other way I can choose to not look at my roots. I might not be as rooted as a person who lives there. I will have my own roots, but I need to somewhere find that grounding. And I don't know if these things make sense. And what is beautiful about doing this with children is that they will let it seep in directly without a filter of analysis, right? And that is why I mean, I just think if I had an opportunity to do it in my childhood, I might have done a better job at it. So does this answer what you were asking for?
Yeah. Well, what I understand is that as time passes by, it's more and more important to be rooted with your traditions and all.
Your tradition
I'm
can be
like-
your tradition. Your
Yeah.
tradition need not to be my tradition. Each person can have their own individual tradition.
Yes.
But largely speaking, because we share a land which has its own history, we share a culture which has its own background, we will understand certain things, you know,
Right.
which a person who lives in another land might not relate to.
Correct.
And those things need to be refined. If for anything actually.
Okay, thank you, Suraj. We will be closing now. It's almost 8:10. So I'm just going to thank everybody for being here, and it was very, very interesting to listen to Akshay, of course, and thank you for your presence, everybody, because your presence made it very enriching. Your questions, your comments, conversations. So thank you so much for everybody for joining in. And Akshay, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. Happy being here.
And yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste, everybody.
Thank you, Akshay.
Thank
It was
you.
very
Thank you.
insightful.
Thank you, Akshay.
And from
Thank you so much.
yeah,
Thank you, Roshan.
Thanks so
Bye.
much.
your face innocence doesn't really, look like that you have so much of depth. I'm in awe looking at you and listening to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste, everybody. Take care.
Thank
you,
you.
Akshay.
Bye.
Bye. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This was another edition with the amazing person, Akshay Gandhi himself. Thank you so much for joining us, and we wait for you all in our next edition of Artist Collective. Namaste, and take care of yourself. Thank you.